thank you very much. Thank you everyone for a chance to kind of hang out and chat about this really cool project that I've built that's going to help you upskill a whole lot of people in Git, GitHub, and open source. So I built a bootcamp. I built this as a 2-day event. I used to work for Microsoft, used to work very closely with GitHub folks, and I built this 2-day event that we would run over a weekend where we'd focus on teaching people the fundamentals of Git and GitHub and then all about open source. And then we decided rather than just run this event, we'll put the whole thing in a box so anyone can take this and anyone can run it. We've open sourced the whole thing. We've got all the materials there for you. And this session is kind of about introducing the ideas behind this, why we did this, and then walking through how to run this kind of from start to finish, how to put on a really good event using what we've got. So as mentioned, I'm Jim Bennett. I'm a principal developer advocate at a company called LibLab. It's a small startup. We automate SDK generation for APIs. We're going to have an open source tier coming soon, so I might be back in touch to give you some free open source goodies once we have that going. So let's, if I get if my clicker's going to work, yay. So this is a link to the open source bootcamp. It's github.com/open source bootcamp. If someone could drop that in the chat, that would be appreciated. Or scan this QR code. And that will take you to a repository with everything you need to run this event. We tried to everyone so that anyone can take this and run. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to zip over here. This is the GitHub organization you'll go to. We have 2 main repositories in here. We have a complete guide to running the event, and we have a canned open source project that we use when doing this event. And I'll talk through all these a little bit more as we go through. So, my clicker's playing silly ones. So here's a picture from the very first time we ran this event. So we ran this just over a year ago at the Microsoft Reactor in Redmond, a free event space. If you're near a Microsoft Reactor, they provide event space for free. So really good for running events. We had a mixture of bootcamp attendees, we had students, we had GitHub campus experts, Microsoft Learn student ambassadors, a few pro devs, and we had a whole range of really cool mentors from Tessa Mero, who heads developer relations at AppWrite. Wampar was there, you may recognize him, tucked away in the middle. We had folks from Microsoft, and we put on a really good event, and everybody really enjoyed it. And actually, this is one of our highest rated events. So back when I was at Microsoft, we would run surveys after each event, try and find out from people what they liked, what they didn't like. And this event was constantly coming in 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. It's a really good event. So what is it? What is it? What it is a 2-day event in a box that teaches the following. It teaches you, what is GitHub? You know, folks hear about this GitHub thing, they know it's important, but what is it? And then how do you actually make code contributions in GitHub? What is the kind of the Git fundamentals, commits, PRs, repositories, things like that? And then how you think about repositories and forks and kind of the Git flow process of getting your code into an open source project. And then how to deal with things like merge conflicts. So the idea is we kind of build those basic skills that teach people how to use Git and GitHub. And we think about things like issues, contributions, licensing, licensing project licenses, different open source licenses, things like that. And then we try and get people to learn other topics around open source. So we kind of want to skill people up in not only the core technical fundamentals to contribute to open source, but also what open source is and why it's a good thing. But fundamentally, we are teaching folks how to collaborate on code. Coding is a team sport. You never really code on your own. Yes, you may have personal projects, but when it comes to open source, the workplace, you work with others, and we teach that collaboration. That's kind of the main thing we want folks to get out of this, is learning how to collaborate. Now, as I said, it's an event in a box. And what I mean by that is we give you everything you need to run this event, except for a place to run it and the actual people to do the work. We give you a GitHub repo with slide decks, instructions, example videos, walk through the sessions, the whole lot, so you can just pick it up, read through it, and run the event. The only thing you have to provide is the speakers, mentors, location, food, Wi-Fi, and attendees. All the things we can't put in the GitHub repo. So in the box, we have, say, fun instructions on how to run the event, step-by-step instructions on everything, best practice guides, FAQs, things like that. All the slide decks. So all the sessions we have slide decks for. For some of the sessions, we have walkthrough videos. Not all. Please record one, submit a pull request. We still need to finish some more of these. Got ideas for additional sessions. Talk a bit more about those in a minute. And then we have this canned open source project, because finding open source projects for people to work on is hard and not something you can really do in a weekend. So we provide a canned open source project that's pre-set up so that folks can make contributions. They know what they're doing and they can see these contributions. So the basic run of the event, day one is GitHub basics. We focus on a profile README. So folks start with sign up with GitHub, create a profile README, and then they contribute to the open source project, the canned one, our Kubeflower project. And then day two is a focus on open source. Talks on open source, you're going to need to find some speakers for this, things like open source origin stories, tips on finding projects, and then you learn about the different ways you can contribute to open source. It's not just about writing code, there is other things you can do, documentation, governance, things like that. So let's actually do a walkthrough. Probably the best thing I can do is just do a walkthrough of running the event from before the event, through the event, to after it. That's probably the easiest way I've got to kind of share how to do this effectively. So before the event, you decided you want to put on this 2-day event. You've got a whole load of students you want to upskill. What do you need to run this event? Well, first thing you need is a team of presenters and mentors. You need people who are willing to present, who are ideally well-practiced presenters, and you need folks who can be mentors, who can be there on hand to support the attendees in the room. Now, you could do this yourself. If there's just one of you, you could do this, but this is a 2-day event, and running 2 days of sessions is tiring. And also supporting the audience can be hard, especially if you've got folks who are new to these concepts. So ideally, you want to have as many mentors as you possibly can. We found the most effective one is one mentor per 6 or 7 attendees. That works well. And that still kept the mentors reasonably busy with still having downtime. And then in terms of presenters, at the very least, you want to be able to have 2 so you can do one session, take a break while someone else presents it. So you'd kind of think about having a group of people to do that. We also have some kind of open talks where we want people to come and talk about open source topics that are important to them. So you need to find speakers for that. Then you need to find a venue to run this with Wi-Fi, good screens, and good audio. Folks have different accessibility needs around vision impairments or hearing impairments. So you need to have good screens and a good audio system so you can make sure you can work with people who need any kind of accessibility accommodations. Food and drink. This is a 2-day, all-day event. So ideally, you want to be able to feed people. So you need to think about, can you provide food and drink? If you can't provide food and drink, you need to let people know so that they can bring their own. You need to make sure that people have something to eat, something to drink, or that's going to be a very, very painful day. We also run some networking games. Dive more into these in a bit, but you need to think about the ideas and equipment you'll need for that. And then most importantly, you need an enforced code of conduct. That means you need a code of conduct and you need people willing to enforce that. And sometimes that is the hardest part. A lot of people do not like confrontation. A lot of people do not want to go up to somebody who's breaching a code of conduct and say, out, and then physically remove them from the premises if possible. You need to have people to enforce your code of conduct. Otherwise, it's worthless and your attendees are not safe. If you are not happy doing this, find someone who is. Depending on your building, you may have access to security. So when I've run this event at the Microsoft Reactor in Redmond, near where I live, I'm happy to throw people out. But if I physically can't, there was always a panic button I could hit under on the desks, hit the panic button, and the Microsoft Campus Security would turn up with the police if necessary. So make sure you have people who are willing and able to enforce a code of conduct. You hopefully will never, ever have to do so, but you need to make sure you've got people who are willing to enforce that. Now, I've said a venue. And the reason I say that is when we've run this event, we've always run it in person. We have not run this remotely. And the reason being is we teach this event by getting people to form small teams. Go into this a bit more later, but essentially a team has a project maintainer and a group of contributors. Now, if you do this event remotely, you cannot guarantee those teams are going to be effective. If the maintainer, the person who takes on the maintainer role, gets bored and leaves, goes off to do some shopping, suddenly the whole process breaks down. You lose the ability to get PRs merged, and you kind of lose that important learning. So that's why we've always ever done it in person. We've also had the feedback that networking is one of the most important things. If you've got students, bootcamp attendees, and pro devs in the same room, they all want to learn from each other. Students want to ask other students about internships. Students want to ask pro devs about how to get jobs, things like that. So we found in-person networking is great. Not to say you can't run it remotely. I'd love it for people to try to do this and then give me feedback, see how it runs. But if you do, you're going to have to put in extra work to make sure every team can run successfully. And as we talk about the way this runs, we'll explain that a bit more. Okay, so once you've got the prerequisites ready, you know where you're going to run it, you've got your food, your people sorted, then read through the event repo. We give you everything. Everything is in the bootcamp guide. So make sure you work through it all long before you actually start the event. Don't turn up on day one and go, yeah, I've got it in a box, I can just present. It doesn't work like that. Then work out who's giving which talk. Make sure they have time to learn the materials and practice. And make sure you have backups. You know, we live in a time of COVID, people get sick. We should always be prepared for that. You don't want to find that, oh, I'm doing this event and my person presenting is out sick, therefore we cannot do the event. No, make sure you've got backups for all the sessions. They don't need to be as polished, but make sure you have backups. And then plan who's going to be doing mentoring. Those people who are not up at the front of the room teaching, they need to be mentors. They need to be there to answer questions to the attendees. So make sure they work through the repos as well. They understand what is going to be asked of them so they know what to expect. Then get out there, share your event, get folks to sign up. And as part of getting folks to sign up, ask about accessibility accommodations. You really want to make this as accessible to as many people as possible. Do you have wheelchair users? If so, you need to make sure you have ramps in place. There's no step-free access, and maybe have desks that are slightly high. You can get a wheelchair under. Do you have people with vision or hearing impairments? Can they see the screen clearly if you get close enough? Can you provide good audio so they can hear clearly? If can you provide lactation rooms or nursing rooms for anybody who needs this? Let people ask, and it's okay to say, I'm sorry, we can't do that. Not everyone can afford to have a sign language interpreter on site, but you should at least ask about this to see how you can support people. Just one thing, I'm seeing a few things appear in the chat. Let me just take a quick look, see if there's anything that I need to jump in and answer. No, cool, thank you for sharing the link. I'll keep checking the chat every now and again. So if you do have any questions, just drop in the chat and I'll pick those up every now and again. Also, when you thinking about getting folks to sign up, you should talk about food. If you are providing food, let people know what you are providing and try and accommodate as many food issues as possible. You know, pizza is great. Pizza is cheap, but also get vegan pizza, vegetarian pizza, gluten-free pizza, maybe salads, things like that. Make sure you can provide people a good selection of food that meets their dietary requirements, and then also communicate this. And if people want to bring their own food, let them know. If you're not providing food, ask people to bring a packed lunch. Just make sure people know what to expect in terms of catering throughout the day. So then you need to prepare the presentations. So as mentioned, this deck has all the presentations provided for you, and we use a thing called slide dev. So slide dev allows you to write Markdown, and it renders as a slide deck. We did this because we didn't want to have people to have either Keynote or PowerPoint or Google Slides or what have you. And so also because it's in Markdown, it's very easy to do updates. If someone wants to correct something on a slide deck, they can correct it pretty quickly by changing the Markdown and raise a pull request. In fact, this presentation now is using slide dev. It's really, really cool. It renders really nicely. In the repo, there's instructions on how to run these. You've got the slide view, you've got a presenter view, same as you get like things like PowerPoint with all your speaker notes and all that. I've got that on a monitor to the side here. Supports all that. It works with clickers, all the things. And you can either install it via NPM locally, or we have a dev container, so you can load up in VS Code, open it in dev container, and that comes pre-installed, pre-configured. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. And just take a bit of time to get to know slide dev, navigating around, and then you need to customize each slide deck for the speaker. So as an example, if my say the clicker works, it's playing silly walnuts again. So for example, here is the first, the start of the first slide for one of the first sessions. We've got front matter at the start and then Markdown. And in the front matter, we have a section for website, handle, logo header, intro image, and then you've got name and job title there. You set the website to be your website. I've got jimbobbennett.dev. You'll see that in the bottom left of my slide. Handle is jimbobbennett. That's in the bottom right. That's my social handle. If you want to have a logo on the top, you can set that, point that to an image. And then the intro image is your face or whatever avatar you want. And then you put in your name and your job title. So for example, here's mine, website, jimbobbennett.dev, handle jimbobbennett, intro image, my name, my job title. So I've just gone through and I've put that into the markdown. And then when you run the slide, it looks like this. So it's got my name, title, all that kind of stuff on the slide. So you need to make sure you do that for all the slides so you can introduce the speaker. And there's like a welcome slide as well where you introduce all the speakers, all the mentors. So you need to make sure you've got the pictures and names in there so everyone knows who all the mentors are. Okay, so cool. So in terms of the structure of each day, this day it's 4 hours of content and we kind of spread it out over 6 hours. That's kind of worked effectively for us. We normally have done 9:30 till 3:30. So we allow kind of 30 minutes for people to arrive. We have had people arrive earlier. If you're relying on public transport, you can't always get there dead on the start. If you're driving a long way, you may want to get there early, don't want to be late. We've had people arriving as early as 8:30 before. So yeah, but 9:30 is kind of when we would open the doors. If people arrive early, we usually let them in early. And then if you can provide breakfast or ask people to bring breakfast, it's good. People get chatting. It's amazing what conversations happen around a coffee machine or over a muffin. So that gives people a chance just to relax, get settled, sign up for the Wi-Fi and get set up ready to go. So when it's start time, you're ready to go. We then have 2 hours of sessions broken into kind of half-hour, 45-minute chunks. So there's little breaks people can take to go to the bathroom, get a drink, things like that. We take an hour for lunch. It's important to have the lunch break. Don't want people to go all the way through. And that allows people to chat. It allows people to talk about what they learned in the morning, what's coming up in the afternoon, share their knowledge, talk about their job, like their student life, whatever. 2 more hours of sessions in the afternoon, and then wrap up time. This is a chance for folks to talk about what happened, wrap up, and then, slowly walk out the door. And there's usually, in my experience, folks stick around. It's 3 o'clock. It's time to go home now. Like, oh, well, let me finish my PR. Let me just get this in. And then conversations happen, networking happens. And usually at about 4 p.m., I'm there saying, right, ain't you got homes to go to? Go on, go away. I've had to kind of throw people out at 4 o'clock because I want to get home, which is great. It's a sign of a good event that people are chatting. I would kick people out at 4, 4:30 when I finally finish tidying up and leave. There are people still hanging around outside talking. It's a sign of a good event. And okay, so day one. Actually, before I do day one, just check if that chat thing is cool. Okay, so day one, very first day. We start with a welcome session. We do an icebreaker. We then get folks on up with GitHub. We get people to connect with each other on GitHub. We introduce the GitHub concepts, take a lunch break, network activity, make project contributions, and wrap up. That is day one. So we start with a welcome. This is where you share your code of conduct and how it's being enforced. Very, very important. Talk through logistics. Something I keep forgetting to do is telling people where the toilets are. Microsoft React in Redmond, when I use that space, the toilet's kind of hidden by the front door to the left, down a passageway. Let people know. Let people know when food is arriving, things like that. Just go over those logistics. Introduce the mentor team. So when people have questions, they know who to ask. Introduce the schedules, people know what's coming. And then encourage folks to network and use the Pac-Man rule. If you have not heard the Pac-Man rule, it is great. So when folks get together and talk in a group, we naturally form a circle. It's the most efficient way to be able to look at everybody in the group and talk to everybody in the group. But a circle is a closed shape. So if you have people who want to join in the conversation, they can't. They have to kind of hang around on the outside. It's like, oh, hello, can I join in? That's not very inclusive, doesn't let people in. The idea of the Pac-Man rule is, you think of Pac-Man's mouth is open. So whenever you form a circle, leave Pac-Man's mouth open. Leave at least one space in the circle for someone to join. That way it's inviting. Someone can overhear a conversation and say, oh, can I join in? I would like to learn more about this. And as soon as they join in, you expand the circle and reopen Pac-Man's mouth. It's kind of a nice inclusive way of getting people to join in. And if you explain this at the start, not only gets people to do it, but also says to folks, if there is a mouth of a Pac-Man open, you can go and join that conversation. Step in there, expand the circle and join in. That tries to encourage people to get involved in conversations. It's a very, very important thing to try and do. You want to make sure everyone's included as much as possible. Pac-Man rule helps. Then we like to start the day proper with a networking activity. So we want to get people just to get this idea of this is a team sport. Coding is a team sport. You need to get together in teams and do things. One we've run is the scavenger hunt. So in the reactor, we have a whole load of software. It's like a big cabinet, and it's full of old software. MS-DOS, Microsoft COBOL, software from a long time ago. And tucked in there is paper tape of Microsoft's original 1975 basic interpreter for the Altair 8800. It's not an original paper tape, it's a copy, but that's sitting there. And the scavenger hunt we run is find the oldest piece of tech in the building. So people have to go around, look around with this big building, lots of stuff laid out, and try and find that. And we usually offer some kind of prize for the winner. So it kind of makes it a bit competitive. Just cheap prizes, it's not here's some Lego, but it's here's some stickers or here's some swag we had out the back. So if you've got things like that, some stickers for your Computer Science Society or GitHub stickers, that can be the prize. So things like that. Think of different things you can do in the space you've got that can get people to interact with each other a little bit. But also be mindful, some people will not want to be involved, and that's fine. But also think about accessibility issues as well. Anything where there's a race, if people have mobility issues, they cannot take part. So that's why it's important to ask about accessibility accommodations up front, so you can structure the network activities based off the audience that you have. Then we kick into learning things, and we start by getting people on at the same place in terms of what they have installed and what's available to them. So we get people to sign up for GitHub, and then we install Visual Studio Code and GitHub Desktop. This is the software that we use. Now, check with your audience. If they all have GitHub accounts already, skip the sign up part and then just focus on installing the software. But if even one person does not, then just work through those instructions to make sure everyone's in the same place. It's better to have a few people just relaxing and have an extra cup of coffee than one person being stuck behind everyone. Let's say the presentation for that is all the instructions, all the screenshots. It also has an embedded YouTube video, the one from GitHub Universe last year with all the ducks. So when you play that, please turn on captions. And then if you have sound available, make sure the sound is turned up. If you can't get sound from your device, that's fine. Just turn on captions. Actually, I will just say as well, GitHub Desktop, not available on Linux. So if folks are using Linux, you may have to kind of handhold them as well. We just use GitHub Desktop to clone repos, just as it's an easier tool than the command line, but your mentors may need to better support someone who has Linux and therefore needs to use the command line. Then we have a quick networking activity where you get people to connect on GitHub, kind of highlight the social nature. It's not just your thing, so you can look at other people's things as well. So turn to the person next to you and share your GitHub handle with them and then follow them. Obviously optional. Some folks want to stay private, that's fine, but it's a kind of a good way to highlight that social nature of GitHub. And then we start getting hands-on working with GitHub, and we create the profile README. So you can create your profile repo, the one that's got the same name as your GitHub username, and you create that README. And we cover creating a repo. You create your first repo. You create a branch. You make a commit from inside GitHub, and then you raise the PR and merge the PR. So kind of go through the basic steps for making that first code change. If they already have the profile README, then just pick any other, get them to create any other repo to do it, just to kind of teach those basic concepts. And that just gives people the basics. At that point, take a break for lunch. Get people to have conversations, get people to network, get people to eat. It's amazing how social we can be when we're having a chance to break bread with people, when we're eating with people. I'd also encourage the mentors and speakers to spread out amongst the attendees. Don't have, here is a table of mentors and speakers, and then here is everyone else. That's not good. Instead, make sure your mentors and speakers are spread out amongst all the tables that you've got or just hanging out with people. If somebody's by themselves, always ask for permission to join. They may intentionally be by themselves, and don't be offended if they say no. Let people have privacy if they want it. But it's good to make sure that you don't just have the mentors and speakers like us versus them. It's just not nice. No, spread out and try and get the conversations going. If the table's being like a tough crowd, no one wants to talk, get your friendliest mentor to come and hang out there and just try and encourage that conversation. After lunch, do another networking activity, a scavenger hunt, tic-tac-toe challenge, just something to get people back in that team spirit before you get going. And then think about these activities kind of in teams rather than individuals. And then we start making a contribution to open source. This is where we start doing open source. And so we have a canned open source project for people to use called Kubeflyer. You may recognize this as a bit like Flappy Cube, or sorry, Flappy Bird, but with cubes. And this is the open source project that folks will be working on. It's a simple game. It's one key, spacebar or the mouse bar, to make your cube go up. Gravity brings it down. And all you have to do is not hit the ceiling, not hit the floor, and not hit any of the green bars that come through. Fiendishly difficult, a lot of fun. It's written as a Babylon.js game. It's all in JavaScript. It all runs self-contained. And this is the project that people will be working on. The way people work on this, say, is in teams. So you want a team of maybe 4 or 5 people. And in that team, somebody gets nominated to be the project maintainer. The rest of the team are contributors to try and replicate the structure you would have for a real-life open source project. So you form your team, one person's maintainer, the rest are contributors. Now, here's a link to the repo, github.com/opensourcebootcamp/kubeflyer, QR code for that as well. So someone could drop that in the chat. That would be great. Say, all JavaScript, Babylon.js to run everything. It's an indexed HTML file. Open that in your browser, play the game. There's no server to run. You don't have to spin up Node. It works for everyone. And ideally, mentors should have a play before the event and let you work through the code. In fact, I'll just show you the code now. It's Kubefly here. All the details are there, and it's literally in the game folder. You have your index.html. Open this up, you get the game ready to play. Now, this repo is a template repo. I'll show you that bit as well, actually. Let me just show you that. If I go back to the code here, you'll see use this template. Use this template. So what that means is anyone can create a repo that's a copy of this. A template repo is a repo that's pre-configured with some content in there, and you say, create a repo, you get a new repo, and when that's created, the content of the template repo is copied in. So the maintainer does use this template, creates their own Kubefly repo, and that's pre-populated with all the Kubefly code, and they're kind of ready to go. As well as populating all the code in the repo, we have 2 actions that live inside that repo, and one gets run automatically when you use the template. These actions create issues. Issues for day 1, issues for day 2. The one that gets run automatically creates all the issues for day 1. And then the one you run manually is issues for day 2. Do not run that until day 2. It's just for day 2. So day 1 happens and you get all these issues created. And that's kind of the thing that folks are working through with contribution to Kubefly. So the idea is the maintainer has the repo, the upstream, and then each of the contributors will fork the maintainer's repo. And then they raise a pull request against the maintainer's repo. They deal with merge conflicts, and then the maintainer closes the issue. That's the kind of structure. Okay. Now, you must fork the template repo. Do not raise pull requests against the template repo. They will be deleted. No one is allowed to raise pull requests against it. We're not taking that. It's got to be against the maintainer's repo. So something to make sure your mentors are kind of clued up on. And the first issue they deal with is adding a greeting. When the game starts, it gets like a little message. And there's like 4 or 5 different messages that are picked at random. The very first issue to resolve is adding more messages. And so all the contributors add a message. The maintainer can add a message if they want. The contributors then raise a PR to merge that message back into their maintainer's repo. You then merge the first one, and it works. Yay. Merge the second one, and you hit a merge conflict. And then we can teach people about merge conflicts and how to resolve them. This is all very much hands-on, very much instructor-led here. So the instructor will tell you, make this change, wait for the change to happen. Raise a pull request, wait for everyone to raise the pull request. Merge it, or you've hit a merge conflict. This is how you resolve it. So all this stuff, all on day 1, is all very much instructor-led. The slides tell you how to do this all. But yes, you hit merge conflicts. This is kind of important for people to understand how you are working on the same file, and then you have a chance to resolve those. Good for the mentors to practice this to make sure they know how to do this. Then once we're all done, they close the issue. So by the end of this, people have learned about forking repos, raising pull requests, merge conflicts, and then issues as well, because they closed the issue. Cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing the repo link in the chat. Appreciate that. And then we wrap up with the second project contribution. So it's kind of the last hour of the day. There is a whole load more issues in the repository for folks to work on. And the idea is each team picks one or more issues to work on, and they decide how they're going to do this. This is their chance to do that self-forming team thing, work out how they want to collaborate with each other. If you've got a team of 4, do you 2 work on one issue, 2 work on another? How do you merge it all? You've got to get used to collaborating with people, and this kind of forces you into that collaboration. It's not instructor-led. It's here's the issues, go off and do that. Mentors are here to help. And this is usually great. Folks really enjoy this. They get the chance to do their own thing. And this is the one where by the end of the day, it's like, no, I haven't finished my pull request yet. I want to get this raised. This is kind of a lot of fun. The issues are things like when you play the game, as soon as you hit something, the game instantly restarts without a pause. So you can suddenly, if you're tapping away at the space bar, you end up, new game starts and you hit the ceiling, you need to pause. There's no scoring. So you need to add score, add a high score view, change the font. And then after that, it's if they have time, any changes they want to make, they kind of collaborate together on issues they want to raise and changes they want to make. It's kind of got this, not so much free time, but unstructured time to collaborate. We've built up the skills during the day, and now we're kind of a bit more, you're on your own to kind of make these contributions. Then we wrap up the day. That is the end of day 1. Wrap up, give everyone a recap, thank the mentors, thank the speakers, ready to go. People are now in a good point where they understand how to make contributions. They've learned the technical skills they need to be ready to contribute to open source. And then we flip to day 2. Structure day 2, welcome as usual, network activity as usual. We then talk about contributing, CLAs, and licensing. We then have talks on something around open source. This is your chance to get local speakers in. Lunch, network activity, and then we focus on how to contribute towards open source by making contributions to Kubeflyer in teams, but touching upon different areas that you may want to work on. So the welcome, same as before, restate the code of conduct and how it's going to be enforced, recover the logistics, reintroduce the team. Encourage everyone to use the Pac-Man rule. No harm in going through everything again. We'll touch on this a little bit later on, but you may have a different audience on the second day, so go through everything again, especially that code of conduct. And then the networking activity we find is great for the second day is a Kubeflyer challenge, and this is so much fun. So you get each team to pick a champion, their best player who can last the longest in the game. So give each team, 10 minutes, just 5 minutes, just to all play Kubeflyer and time how long and who can last the longest in the game. Then get the top players, get the champions together and have a public Kubeflyer off. And this can be a lot of fun if you can get the audience involved. I normally get the audience counting down, 3, 2, 1, go. And then we cheer everybody on. Don't just cheer your team, cheer everybody. There's not a team winning, it's a person winning. So even if they're in your team, still cheer everyone else. And it just gets fun when someone does 20 seconds, someone does 15 seconds, someone does a minute and a half. And they're like, oh, the next person, can they beat a minute and a half? And we've had some amazing scores and it's a lot of fun. So this is a really good fun one to do. You want to make sure you run it in a place where everyone can see the screen that's being played on and just get everyone to celebrate everybody's playing it. Again, if people don't want to play, they don't have to play, never force anyone, and make sure as well that the teams do not use peer pressure to force someone into competing if they don't want to. Got to be totally optional. Then we talk about a topic that is scary, potentially dry, but very important, which is contributing, CLAs, and licensing. CLAs are contributor license agreements. Okay, so this is a talk on the legal and logistical side of open source. Now, unless you are actually a lawyer, I would advise that you point out this is information you're providing. This is not legal advice. Always talk to a software lawyer. This is just publicly available information that was being shared, not legal advice. I think this talks about things like what is a contributor license agreement, why you should sign it, what it means. I am signing this to say that this is my code. I'm allowed to give it to you and you now own it. And of course, if that code belongs to your employer, you are suddenly in trouble. It's the things like the licensing, MIT licenses, Apache licenses, and why you should probably not use GPL in anything for work. And if something doesn't have a license, what do you do? Things like that. Very, very important topics. You need this information to be able to be successful with open source. Can be a dry topic. So if you have a speaker that's full of personality, that's the person to get to do this. A friend of mine, Austin, usually does these talks, and he's funny. Yeah, the audience is rolling in the aisles laughing as he's covering these topics because it is quite a serious topic. So try and get your most fun presenter to cover this. Then we have talks on something. So this is your opportunity to get local speakers or even remote speakers if you want to, but folks who have done things with open source and they can talk about topics that are important to them. So if someone's a maintainer of a popular project, what was their journey like? Why are they a maintainer? If they started a project, why did they start it? How did open source get someone a job? How did you become a GitHub campus expert or other open source ambassador? Things like that. So we've had talks in the past from Tessa Mero, head of developer relations at Appright, talking about how open source got them a career, and they now head developer relations at Appright. We've had Apollo, former GitHub campus expert, now works for Apple, talking about how contributing to open source got them their job at Apple as an internship and on from there. We've had another GitHub campus expert talking about what the campus expert program is, why you want to join. And we do have in the repo some videos of these talks. So if you do get stuck, we do have videos that you can play. Really recommend that you find a local speaker. People want to learn from people in their community. The advantage of a local speaker over a remote speaker is that networking over lunch and asking questions. If you can only get a remote speaker, great. It's better to have that than not. But if you've got somebody in the room, that can really help with getting questions answered. But yeah, think about the topics that are important to you. Think about the topics that might be of interest to your audience. Have that kind of free time, but needs to have this open source focus. This is an open source bootcamp. So this needs to have that focus on open source. Then again, lunch break. This is your chance to grill the speakers about the topics they were talking about and carry on talking about all the stuff you learned the day before. Another networking game, get people to do things, whatever they want to do, whatever you want to do. Just another optional fun event for people. Get ready for the afternoon. And then for the afternoon of day 2, we work in teams to make contributions to Kubeflyer. In the past, we've tried doing things like find an open source project to contribute to, and that's been hard. 2 hours is not long enough to even find something. There's too many choices there. So instead, we've decided to focus on Kubeflyer as the open source project. And the idea in this section is not, here is some code we want you to write. It's, here are the ways you can contribute to open source. DevOps, documentation. Honestly, anyone who writes docs is the GOAT. You want people writing docs. Most open source projects fail because they don't have good documentation. The most successful ones have great documentation. Project governance, cloud deployments, CI/CD, all that kind of stuff. Art and design. This is your chance for people to realize that you can contribute to open source in many, many different ways. A lot of folks start by making documentation changes. There's a bug in the docs, going to fix it, raise a pull request. How many people fix the spelling mistake? Pull request for the spelling mistake. It happens. There's many ways you can contribute to open source, and this is all about doing that. And so there's an action you run, get the maintainers to run this manually, and it creates these new issues in the repo. And then it's in your teams, work out which issues you want to work on, or form new teams. If you've got someone over here and someone over here who cares about art and design, form a new team. And then it's project management, setting up projects, issue templates, understanding how to do that kind of governance side of open source. Documentation, write the docs for Kubeflyer, write a user guide, write code documentation, learn about repos. Deploy to the cloud, deploy to Netlify or whatever is your cloud provider of choice. It's just static page, GitHub Pages, whatever. Deploy to the cloud. Add a configuration service. So things like the speed, the gravity, make that as an API you can call. CI/CD, how do you automatically deploy it? Again, GitHub Pages is a great one for this. Get that set up. Or even art and design. It's cubes. It's just cubes. It's not the nicest looking project. So if there's people with art skills, how do you make it a bit better? How do you improve the color scheme? Things like that. So many things people can do. If you think of any more good ideas, just raise a PR to add them to this issue template. But the idea here is We want people to realize there's so much more to open source. And then you've got the kind of 2 hours in your team to focus on doing this. And the goal is to make these contributions back to the maintainer's repo. Don't just sit there by yourself and write some docs, get that contribution merged, work as a team, really focus on that collaboration. Then we wrap up day 2. One thing we do like to run as an optional networking activity is to get folks to connect with each other. LinkedIn is a good platform for that. And there is on LinkedIn, if you've not seen this before, there is, when you select the search bar at the top of LinkedIn, there's a little button that's like a QR code, and you end up getting a little, I'm not sure how well the camera's going to focus, but you get a QR code. So you just scan each other's QR codes and that sends a connection request. So things like that, it's great to get folks to connect with each other, to carry on the conversation afterwards. Also good to ask maintainers to keep their repos alive for a while. So you end up with folks who still want to make commits after the event. They want to keep on practicing what they've learned. So they want to be able to merge that and kind of communicate with the maintainer. And then good time to collect feedback. You've run an event, run a survey, ask people questions. Did you like it? Did you not like it? That can help you with the next event you run. But also any feedback you've got about the event, in the box, any kind of general feedback. We have discussions open on the repo. Please, please, please add to that so we can constantly iterate on the event. And then rest. It's a tiring couple of days. You need time to rest afterwards. So that's it. You are done. Your bootcamp is done. You can rest. You can relax. Eat the leftover pizza if there's any, whatever, and chill out. So before I just wrap up, I'm just going to go through a few of the frequently asked questions that people ask us about this particular event, just to kind of give a few kind of best practices. So what if an attendee can only attend one day? We get asked this a lot. We normally promote these events to boot camps. Some boot camps are Saturdays only, so they can only come on Sunday. So, yep, cool. If you can only attend the first day, that's fine. First day starts from scratch. We teach you the basic concepts around Git and GitHub. That is great. If you can only attend the second day, that is fine, as long as you are signed up for GitHub and know how to use it. If you are completely new, the afternoon may be a bit of a struggle for you, but you can still just attend the morning of the second day if you just want to learn a bit about open source. But yeah, we've had folks just turning up on the Sunday saying, yeah, I know how to use GitHub, but I'm interested in open source tools. So that's fine, as long as you let them know that this is what you're missing out on the first day. Need to do this remotely. Really need to do it remotely. Yep. Okay. Give it a go. We've never done it, but give it a go. And please let me know how it goes. I really want to know. But you've got to have reliable maintainers. As we said, everybody's in teams and they all contribute to the maintainer's repo. If that maintainer just decides, yeah, I'm bored, I'm done, suddenly everyone on the team is blocked. So ideally, if you've got maintainers or other friends who can be those, mentors or other friends who can be those maintainers, that really helps to make sure that that doesn't happen and people can successfully contribute. Otherwise, you've got to be on it a lot. My maintainers disappeared. Okay, jump onto this team. Make sure you've got a good platform like Discord so you can share the talks, you can have conversation, you can find out when a maintainer's dropped off and move people around. Do I need a code of conduct? This question gets asked a lot. Yes. Yes. Absolutely, yes. Attendees need to feel safe and supported, and code of conduct is a way of ensuring people behaves, and if anyone doesn't, they remove the event. You need it, you need to enforce it, you need to make sure you're comfortable enforcing it. If not, find people who are comfortable enforcing it and bring them along. Know how to call the police if necessary, or security for the building you're in. Very unlikely you'll ever need to do that, but it has happened. In my entire career at Microsoft, I can think of 3 code of conduct breaches where we've had to ban people from all Microsoft events. One person had to be removed from the premises for being drunk and obnoxious. One was reported after the event, and we banned someone from Microsoft events. One was at a large conference. It was a Microsoft-run conference. They were verbally abusing somebody of one of our partners, and so got security to throw them out. So it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Do not serve alcohol at events, because that just makes this kind of stuff worse. It's uninclusive for folks who don't want alcohol for personal, religious, or other reasons. But also, if people get drunk, they can become pretty unpleasant. So don't do alcohol, and make sure you enforce the code of conduct. Okay. I need a venue. Another question. I need a venue. I want to run this in person. I need a venue. Cool. You're a campus expert. You have a campus potentially. Does your school have rooms you can use? A lecture theater is kind of great. You've got the big screen, everything you need. Also talk to local tech companies. they may be more than happy to sponsor your event and provide food, because there's a chance you'll be aware of the tech company. They want to contribute towards developer communities. They might employ you one day, who knows, but talk to some local tech companies. Also tech recruiters. Certainly pre-COVID, recruiters were big sponsors of meetups and other events because they want to build up that pipeline of potential candidates. So a recruiter may let you use their space and give you food in return for a 5-minute spiel at the start of the session of, hey, when you're looking for a job, come to us. So ask around. There's usually lots of support to getting these kind of venues. Some attendees don't want to take part in networking activities. That's fine. Never force people to do things they don't want to do. Be mindful of accessibility issues around the network activities that you want. Do not have a running race. That is not a good activity because people with mobility issues can't be involved. Things like that. So be mindful of that. And if someone doesn't want to get involved, they don't have to. Something's missing from the guide. I've worked through your bootcamp guide, Jim, and this thing is missing. Brilliant. Raise an issue, raise a PR. Thank you for finding it. Appreciate your contributions. Raise that issue, or even better, raise the PR. We try to make this as effective as possible, but obviously we can always do better. So anything that's missing, please raise an issue or PR. How much does it cost to use this event? We've given you an event in the box. Does it cost me anything? Nope. It's completely free. It's completely open source. It's MIT licensed. You do with it what you want. We want to upskill people. My measurement of success for this is not, are people giving Jim money, but is, are people learning? Are people getting new skills? I think we've done skilled about 150 people so far with this event. The more we can do, the better. So it's completely free for you to use, and you can do what you like with it. Give it to your friends, run it at a university as a lecture course, whatever. But also in return, can you charge for running this event? I can't stop you. As I said, it's free for you to use. You can charge this event if you want to, but I'd recommend that you don't. When you start charging, you limit who can get access to this information. This is really good content for folks who are new to tech. And some of those folks do not have the big tech salaries that those of us who spent the last 25 years in tech and work for big tech companies have. So if you charge, that may limit who can attend. If you do need money because you have to pay for venue or food, maybe do it by asking for donations. If you have to charge because you need the venue, you have to charge. But ideally, please don't. Please make this as free and accessible to everyone. That's it. I'm giving this content to you for free. Please, in return, spread that love and share this with people for free. And with that, good luck. Good luck with running this event. When you run it, please share with me how it went, how many people you upskilled, what worked, what didn't work, things like that. But good luck. It's a really good fun event. It's a really good weekend, well spent. I did this as part of my day job at Microsoft, kind of semi-day job, semi-owned time, running this at weekends. I still plan to run this going forward, even though I'm not paid by Microsoft anymore. I now work for someone else. I'm still planning to run this event. I'm going to try and organize one for this year. Been a bit busy changing jobs, so I haven't done one for it since June, I think was the last one. So I'll probably try and do one later in the year. It's a really good fun event. It's great to run kind of about now to get people upskilled for Hacktoberfest, but it's a skill that a lot of people want to learn. So whenever in the year you run it, you'll probably always have a good audience. But good luck with running it. And with that, I will bring up the chat, but otherwise I'm going to open for questions.